I know Chanuka just ended, but there are many major lessons that we can learn from it. And I'd like to focus on the backstory and what we can learn from that. So let's begin about a little less than 200 years before the Chanuka story. The second temple had just been rebuilt, and the sages were nervous. They were worried. Why? Because the first temple had been destroyed. Why? Because of idol worship. Who's to say it wouldn't happen again? So they saw that this was an Eis Ratzon, it was a time of favor, and they beseeched God to please take away the pull and power of idolatry. God granted their request, and ancient idolatry was no more. But there was a casualty, one major casualty: prophecy. You see, the foundation of creation was the concept of free will. And to have free will, you always have to have a fair and balanced choice. In the ancient world, people lived side by side with the supernatural. God performed open miracles. He communicated with us directly through the prophets. On the other hand, you had the power of idolatry. And that was the challenge of the day. Do you turn to God, or do you shift your focus towards the power of idolatry? When that power of idolatry vanished, so did prophecy. You couldn't have one without the other. So the world we live in now is a completely different reality. Beforehand, the presence of God was obvious and tangible in day-to-day life. In today's world, that's no longer the case. And the challenge of today is different as well. I could go about my life, my day-to-day life, without a care in the world, because I don't see God. Or I could look for God and develop a relationship with Him. The Greeks took it one way. They said, what you see is what you get. To them, the world was one giant melting pot of pleasure and knowledge, and to know God. The Jews also had to adapt. Their connection to God was no longer easy and miraculous. Now their connection had to become one that was more personal and internal, investing great effort in Torah study, prayer, and divine service. Needless to say, this tiny Middle Eastern nation was a source of great frustration for the Greeks. They were very bothered that these holdouts believed that there was still a God and a purpose to life. And this cultural clash finally came to a head when the Greeks went to the temple, defiled the temple. The Hashmonaim, the Hasmoneans, out of their great love for God, couldn't take it anymore. They fought back, and against all odds, they drove out the Greeks and rededicated the temple. This Chanuka backstory continues to this day. God is still hiding behind the door, waiting and waiting and waiting for us to come open it up, reunite with Him, and bring Him back into our lives. Every one of us has a starting point where we can recreate that connection with God. For each person is different. For one person, it might be lighting candles on Shabbos. For another person, it might be speaking to God in His own words every day, a few minutes every day. For another person, Torah learning. For each person, it's different. They each have their way to start and develop their unique and personal connection with God. And God is eagerly waiting for us to experience the joy of finding Him in the darkness and reuniting with our Father in heaven. Thank you.